loves. Hope you're doing great out there. It's beautiful outside. The leaves are changing color. The leaves are coming down off the trees and it's just gorgeous. So I just decided to come and sit out here in the dining area where I can get a view of our backyard and just kind of just sit and bask in the present. So hopefully you don't mind. I hope you guys have been enjoying the videos. If you have, give us that thumbs up. Let us know you like it. And if you're a newcomer, subscribe. Subscribe for this Love Fully Alive. The love that we are all intended to live right here, right now. So, hope you can continue to journey this one with us. It's all about accompanying one another, and it's a good thing. A very, very good thing. So, hope you enjoy them. So, today we are talking about that wonderful topic no parent likes to have. But it's good because if we don't have it, they will go seeking elsewhere. And my hair is crazy, I know. It's just, okay, never mind. So anyhow, yeah, our kids will go out seeking answers for themselves and they'll get all the wrong ideas of what sex is truly all about. So, how do we talk about sex with our kids? Ooh, tough one. So I'll let y'all think about that for a moment. I know when I had conversations with our kiddos about sex, it was a little bit twisted, a little bit distorted because of where I was coming from. So the first word of encouragement I would give parents out there beginning to have this conversation is first, take a time out for yourself. Reflect. Reflect in truth. Seek truth, okay? We got to seek truth. Where did I first learn about sex? Was it in a healthy environment, in a healthy place, or was it kind of like on our own, which most of us engaged in sex conversations or sought out what sex was all about all on our own. Usually through TVs, music, movies, magazines, videos, things that weren't all that great and healthy and according to the truth about our sexuality and what sex was and what sex was meant for. So this is why we have to take that time out to kind of just figure out where we are in regards on how we view sex, okay? And some of us have been through some experiences that weren't very healthy and weren't rightly ordered and have caused this confusion within us in regards to sex and our sexuality, even our sexuality within itself. So if you find yourself there, ask for guidance, ask for prayer, ask for the courage to seek out truth here and begin untwisting what has been twisted for a while now. So for me personally, I remember as a kid growing up and listening to music. Oh man, I love me some love songs. And just because it gave you that inspiration of something good, something beautiful, and music has a way of tapping into that. And a lot of times the music that I would listen to wasn't realistic. Okay, let's just say that. It wasn't committed. There was no, I don't know, there was no sacrifice in it. There was no true understanding. It was just like, oh, I love you. It was just ridiculous. But so now it's so funny for me to go back and reflect on those songs that really pulled at my heart. And there's always goodness there. I can always reflect on, wonder why that one stirred me so much during that time in my life. And I realized that most of these songs were during the times where I was coming into womanhood and I began developing this attraction to the opposite sex, and I was yearning to be loved, and I wanted just now. I wanted to be loved, and it was so. I reflect back now, and I realize that it was my yearning to connect with, even at that level, with my father, and I didn't realize that that's really what I was looking for. But I was replacing that with a guy, with a boyfriend, with the image of what it could be. And so I would fantasize about that all the time. And it was ridiculous now that I think back. I was like, I wasted so many hours of my day, of my life. But no, it wasn't a waste, because now I get to tap into the reality of what I was truly longing for and looking for. So this is why it's good for us to reflect back on where we first encountered a thought of sex, a vision of sex. We started developing this curiosity in regards to sex and our sexuality. So it's a good thing to reflect. Then I had to go back and kind of really let myself see, okay, what's real, what's not real. So a lot of the movies, I know we've all engaged in those awesome movies that are romantic, and but they're so superficial. They stay on the level, and it's all about the sexual attraction. And that's basically the gist of the whole film is, once they had sex, they were like in this euphoria, and that's about it. But that's the glimpse that we get. We don't get the reality of it. There's no sacrifice involved. There aren't really any struggles or trials, or maybe there is one to make it a little longer, and then in the end there's always happy endings and just, all this good stuff. And that's okay. Let's just be honest. That is not the reality. For one, okay, you don't ever see these people get married. They're just having sex. I've learned through personal experience that when you just have sex outside of marriage, it's not a good thing. You're gonna struggle. Let's take that a little bit further. Engaging in several relationships, several sexual relationships, having these sexual encounters with other people, and then you finally get married. Well, guess what? All those encounters now are going to bring a lot to this union between man and woman in this relationship, in this marriage now, and it causes much more destruction than we tend to want to admit. Okay, so this is why, hey, you asked, what's so important about reflecting on sex for ourselves, how we see it? This is why. Because if we're coming from this perspective, then we're seeing it twisted. We're seeing it in a distorted way. And so we have to be able to take a time out for ourselves and start untwisting some of that. One of my biggest things was I would use sex as a pleasurable thing to seek a fulfillment within me. It was a need. It was a longing to be loved and to be loved on. And so sex was an easy way to get that, right? I mean, those of us, yeah, of course, that's how you do it. But it's not what is real. It's not sex. When it's used like this, we're objectifying it. We're making it less than. When we realize what the truth is about sex and our sexuality, the gift of our sex, is so much more than that. And unfortunately, we walk around this world, this earth, in and out of relationships with this one and only definition of sex. The twisted, the distorted, the broken sense of it. So this is why it's important to reflect. I need a little tea because my throat is getting dry. And I heard me say, so that the stuff in the movies, a lot of the times it was about using the other person to get what I wanted. And most of the times nowadays, it's okay to move on and walk away from that. And well, yeah, when you don't have committed love, when it's sex outside of marriage, there's no commitment to it. There's nothing I'm going to hold you to. There's always a way out. And so this is why it's so convenient for us to engage in that, because when things get a little weird or get a little tough, I'm out of here. And let's be real, that's how we use sex. Now, is that what we want to teach our kids? Heck no. This is why we reflect on what we've learned, what we've lived, and what is true. Okay? So hopefully that's helpful. Sex is for marriage. This is not just an old traditional thing. Yes, I know. I can see the rolling of the eyes going on. But sex is for marriage. And when you hear sex in its truth, in its fullness, and in its beauty, you'll understand why. I did the same thing. I of course, we had all 3 of our kids before we actually got married. And sex was completely twisted in that time because we weren't living our sex, our sexuality according to what it's meant for, to according to the freedom and love we've been given. So sex is for marriage. It's not just an old tradition. This is truth. And I'm going to paraphrase from the Catechism once again today, a couple of times anyhow. And I'm going to dive into 2332, and it's speaking about sex, or sexuality. So, our sexuality affects all aspects of the human person. Sex affects all aspects of our being, body, and soul. Okay, I'm going to pause there for a moment because you're crazy, right? You think I'm crazy, but I'm not, because this is how it affects us. Watch. So when we engage in sex, when we encounter this love, and it affects us spiritually, does it not? Because that's the power of our sexuality. It's this great fire within us. And it's either going to be when we're using sex for our own pleasure, for our own self-seeking needs, for our own gratification, for maybe we're just objectifying it. It serves the purpose, and this is why I'm going to use it, blah, 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 whatever. So when it's self-seeking, this fire within us, our sexuality, this fire destroys. It could either bring forth new life, or it could completely destroy. And this, just like fire does, right? When there's huge fire, there's this big old flame, and it kills everything in its path, but then this new life comes forth out of it. So, and then there's fire where it purifies, it makes beautiful, it purges. When you think about gold, how it's refined and it's brought into its beautiful, this beautiful, great, glorious image, and that's how we get gold. So there's good things about fire, and there's bad things about fire. So when we're using fire in the sense of our sexuality and our self-seeking pleasure, our own gratification, when we begin to objectify it, take it away from its fullness and its beauty and its glory, it becomes destructive. Okay, and this is how crazy it can get, right? First, like I told you, we had all 3 of our children before we actually got married. Our relationship then, our union as man and woman, not married, just man and woman, it was destructive. We were completely not helping each other build each other up. We were constantly tearing each other down. And in that sense, unfortunately, our kids watched on and looked at this stuff. And so this is why it's important to help us get right with our sexuality and the gift that sex truly is. And so in order to do that, you have to seek truth. You have to seek freedom there. You have to persevere. And so this is why I hope this is encouraging, because it's a lot easier when we allow ourselves to receive truth. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. There is freedom. And truth sets us free. They go hand in hand. Okay, so that's first part. Our sexuality affects all of the human person, body and soul. Second piece to this, and it's 2332. Especially affectivity, especially in regards to our emotions and our feelings, to love. Okay? Sex, our sexuality affects our feelings and our emotions to love. This is huge. But even in a more general way, in a way that everyone can grasp, it affects our capability of forming bonds of communion with others. Now get this. If we are just using sex for our own satisfaction, for our own gratification, for our own self-seeking pleasures, and we begin to objectify it, then how healthy are my relationships going to be? Because when I view the opposite sex, it's about how you're going to serve me. What good are you going to give me? And we can take that into all our other relationships, all our other friendships, all the other communions we have with other people. And usually it's not a communion then. It's just about we begin to objectify humanity, which is really bad, and it's shameful to admit, but yep, been there, done that, where if you're not going to help me, if you're not going to serve me, if you're going to be of no use to me, then what do I need you in my life for? Boy, talk about some serious brokenness and long nights of feeling utterly alone. This is what we do to ourselves when we are living this twisted sense of sex. So, okay, so now we have to begin to untwist, to reorient our sexuality, what this great goodness of sex is truly all about. Man and woman, we're going to talk about men and women because you can't talk about sex without sexuality, or sexuality being male, being female. It's catechism, out of catechism number 2333. So, as men and women, in our acceptance of ourselves, of our identity within our sexuality, these differences and complementarities within our physical, moral, spiritual are good. These are goods for marriage. These are good for family life. Think about it. And this hit hard. I mean, this really moved me because I was so adamant on having things done my way. Everything according to what I like. Everything flowing the way I would let it. You know, it was just nuts. And it was so twisted that I was not allowing my husband, my beloved, to compliment me. And there's only so much that as a woman I can fulfill, and there's only so much as a man that he can fulfill. But picture this: how much more can we fulfill in the complementarity of the two, working with and through one another? Huge, huge, huge. There's just no end to the blessing and graces that come from that, flow from that. This is why it talks about how men and women coming together, even in society, to work together. When we're in this unity of male and female, we complement one another, and we're more prone to bring this harmony into everything that we do together. That's just the way it is naturally. So our differences are a good difference. It's not a bad, weird, awkward difference. It's a good difference. It's a healthy difference. And then in this, think about it. In this, male and female, we're made in the image of likeness of God. We resemble God's power and his tenderness as man and woman. This is why it is so important to embrace these differences, because in that we begin this complementarity. We begin this awesome dance, everywhere, not just within our union of marriage of husband and wife, but in the workplace, in church life, in the communities that we're a part of. When we're able to really live within the fullness of who I am as a woman and he as a man, we bring this harmony into society, building up society, not tearing it down. We begin to tear it down when we deny who we truly are, when we misuse, when we abuse our sex and our sexuality. I hope this is making sense. It's totally on the Holy Spirit. And so it continues on with Catechism 2333. So bringing this harmony in society and within a couple, within friendships, it depends in part on the way of the complementarity, needs, and mutual support between the sexes and how this is lived out. So how we live this out within this complementarity, the needs of one another and the mutual support of the other, is how we bring harmony, or we bring disruption. We bring division, we bring chaos, we bring confusion. And if you take a look around us in the world today, there's a whole lot of the other versus the harmony, the peace, the beauty, the goodness. It's really hard to seek that versus the other. You step outside and you see all sorts of chaos, and turn on the TV and you hear about all this. It's just crazy. So when we're living in the fullness of who we are, men and women, and truly embracing our identity, realizing that as man and woman, we're brought into this equal dignity in the eyes of God, in and through the eyes of us. because we're both made in the image and likeness, but we also make God visible in this world when we embrace all that we are in our manhood and our womanhood, because we bring in the might, the power of God and his tenderness. And in that, we make him visible when we're harmonious with one another. So hopefully you've got something here, and there's something that's stirring within you already. And I pray that you let God speak truth into you there. Speaking more on this harmony, because of our differences, we go well with each other. I'm talking about family life now, within our marriage. When we were living this twisted, distorted image of sex and sexuality, it was a destructive, chaotic environment. It was not a building up of each other. Heck no, it was just tearing each other down, and that's how we felt good about the other, is how bad we can. It was just bad. It was messed up. So God bless us that we're not there anymore. I mean, we still have a tendency to fall into that temptation, of course, but we know the difference now. And when you're exposed to the difference, you want more of the different, because for so long we bought into a lie. So now that we've worked through the untwisting, we're able to reorient all our desires and be on the same page about them. So now, in ministry, we do everything together, which pray for my beloved. Hopefully he'll be joining us in video soon, Lord, soon. But anyhow, we serve together, and there's something about his manhood that he brings to the table, and then something about my femininity, my womanhood that I bring to the table. And when you bring both of them, you can have so much goodness happen. And you see the beauty of complementarity. When we're setting each other free to step into our fullness, not holding each other back, but setting each other free, not making it about a competition between one another. But when we flow together, it goes so well together. There's so much more there happening than we could even imagine. And that's making God's image visible. So then you take it a little step further in family life. When we have our children, we have 2 boys, 2 girls, and when they were growing up, I was so bent. Remember, this is me in the brokenness and in the distorted and twisted images of who I was and what I was and all that crazy stuff. So anyhow, in that time frame, when I look back, I was so dominating. I was so controlling, so possessive of parenting our kids that at some point in the journey of the untwisting, I realized that I was doing them a wrong. I was causing a tainted image of who they were as little men and little women, okay? So at some point, God just said, hey, you need to step back and let your son, your beloved, your Tino, your husband, to love your children here in this way. And even to this day, I work on encouraging that, because I took him completely out in the beginning. Like, they didn't have this relationship, a healthy relationship with their father, because 1, I got in the way. 2, he was not living in his fullness of manhood. And 3, we were so disconnected from truth and goodness according to God's plan that we were making things up on our own. Okay, so this is the challenge. This is the beautiful gift of living in this fullness of womanhood and manhood, embracing the goodness in our differences and complement one another, become this complementarity in the world, which is so needed today. So this is why it's so good. I know that as a mom, I can only speak truths to my daughters now that at a level that only makes sense to us. And men, fathers, can only speak to their sons at a level that only makes sense to them. Let's be real. When we try to understand everything there is about the opposite sex, we always come up short, because we will never fully grasp that. We'll always be stunted, and that's okay, because I'm not meant to understand completely, totally. I just know that to make this better, to make me greater, God has given me a man. He has blessed us with the fullness of his image. And that's a good thing. That is not a bad thing. It's a very, very good thing. So I hope this doesn't sound so crazy and you've received something here. The challenge for you this week or today is to reflect on those places of our sex and sexuality that we are twisted. And just let yourself receive. How did I first receive an image of sex? Where did I seek it? How did I find it? How did I come across it? What was going on in my childhood during that time? And then how did I live this out? How did I seek this out? Okay, so allow yourself to just reflect. That's the challenge. And then if you can and if you're willing, in the comments below, help us out. Let us know what you thought. Let us know how you worked through it, if you have, the untwisting part of it. But we will also leave within the comments, well, either in the comments or in the description, resources for how we came into the fullness of who we are and began working through the untwisting. So, of course, there's going to be some Theology of the Body links below. And for those of us who need further healing, who need just a little bit more one-on-one type of thing, I'm going to insert the link to the JP2 Healing Center, which is an awesome place, and they have retreats all across the place, all across the country. And so just take some time to reflect and let yourself receive. All right, brothers and sisters, I hope that you've enjoyed this episode. Hope it makes sense. And I know we didn't get to the part about talking to the kids about this. Can't share with them from a twisted, distorted image of sexuality and sex, okay? We have to get things right within our own perspective, within our own view, and what we're living out in truth and in freedom, according to what God intended sex and sexuality to be all about. So, hope you don't mind. Okay, so if you haven't already, give us that thumbs up. Let us know these are good, this is working. If you have something that you want more of, comment below. Let us know. We want to be able to serve you faithfully. We want to be committed to what it is that you're looking for, and we hope we can continue this relationship here that we've built upon and just continue to challenge each other to live that love more fully alive, because that is what we're meant for. Love you guys. God bless, and goodbye.